I really am getting emotional when you think about the journey they've been on, because I know what kind of abuse they endured. I know what they were called. I know how they were attacked by fellow women and by the trans community. I remember when Riley Gaines spoke at San Francisco State University, and she had to run for her life because they chased her into a closet because they wanted to kick the shit out of her. An incredible, glorious scene in the East Room of the White House yesterday as Donald Trump held a celebration for an executive order protecting women's sports. Here's how Caroline Levitt announced it yesterday from the press briefing room.
That you signed today, you said that this will be enforced. Can you spell out for schools and the public how exactly the administration plans to enforce this, even at the local level? And on top of that, there are human rights groups who say that this could expose kids to discrimination. What is your response to that?
I think kids have already been exposed to discrimination, especially young women and girls who have been forced to shower in locker rooms with biological men, who have been forced to compete on playing fields with biological men, which is incredibly unfair and unsafe, and again, an incredibly unpopular policy with the American people. As for the actions that this executive order takes, I already laid those out at the beginning of the briefing. I'm happy to give you a copy of this fact sheet so you can let your audiences across the country know.
What's your message to schools who don't comply with this?
They should, because it's going to be federal law in about an hour and a half.
I just love that so much. What's your message to those who don't comply? They should. Otherwise, they're breaking the law. Let me just tell you, every time a left-wing member of the media or a Democrat or somebody on a Facebook page or YouTube stream makes this case that this is discriminatory against certain children, a little Republican angel gets his wings and decides to run for office because that liberal, that left-winger, that person in the media, that YouTube streamer has just made it that much easier to get a Republican elected. Think about your mindset. If your concern here in this entire equation is the dude who wants to go into the women's locker room and expose himself to all the other girls, and you're not concerned about all the other girls and what they're dealing with, it is a no-brainer. That's why the left embraces it, because you kind of have to have no brain to think about this the way they're thinking about it. This is what the scene looked like in the East Room yesterday, as all of these children, these young girls with their moms, they're dressed for soccer practice, they're dressed for softball practice, they're dressed for cheerleading and dance competitions, all filing into the White House for this incredible moment. And I hate to tell you, but I'm often reminded that conservatives, Republicans, Trump in particular, needs to worry about the suburban mom vote, because he seems mean and icky, and we don't want to raise our daughters in an environment where these mean tweets are happening. And look who's there. Look who this is meant for. Look who is really benefiting from this presidency. It's an astounding scene as they keep filing into the East Room for this ceremony. But what's even more astounding is where they were for this signing ceremony. You see, because usually you see the president up there sitting at a desk, and you've got, a senator and an 80-year-old congressman, maybe a governor, maybe one citizen that represents why this bill is being signed or why the executive order is being signed behind the president, right? That's usually what you see. No. Not yesterday. This was the scene yesterday where all of those women, all of those moms, all of those athletes, all of those little girls were assembled behind the president as if they had just won the Stanley Cup, as if they had just won the National College Football Championship, because they are the winners. They are the champions here. And President Trump was absolutely pitch perfect in his delivery.
With my action this afternoon, we're putting every school receiving taxpayer dollars on notice that if you let men take over women's sports teams or invade your locker rooms, you will be investigated for violations of Title IX and risk your federal funding. There will be no federal funding.
You see the brave face of the beautiful Riley Gaines right over the president's shoulder there, a woman who had tied the gentleman who goes by Leah Thomas, tied him in an NCAA women's swim meet. And the NCAA, in their cowardice, decided to give the statue, the trophy, to Leah Thomas, told Riley Gaines, yeah, we'll send it to you. But for the photo op, we need Leah to hold this. Seems like that was a long time ago. It was only 3 years ago, actually, when the entire world changed. And it seemed like this was a boulder rolling down a hill and we couldn't do anything to stop it, right? Except Riley Gaines said, yeah, I've had enough. I'm going to speak out. And the reason why this issue resonates is because it is common sense. Think about what the president just said. We are keeping men out of women's sports. Why is that hard to understand? You have to twist yourself into a pretzel to, in some way, take the side of the man who wants to play women's sports. Trump continued yesterday.
We will not allow men to beat up, injure, and cheat our women and our girls. From now on, women's sports will be only for women.
Joe Biden, left-wing Democrat, couldn't bring himself to say those words. He opposed this. He denied his entire team. Kamala Harris couldn't bring herself to say those words, that we will not allow women to be beat up, abused, and bullied by men on the playing field. But then things got really extraordinary. I told you about that moment where the president signs the executive order, right? And you see the stagecraft behind him with the octogenarian senator standing there shaking, because that person helped champion the bill in the Senate, right? The scene was a little different here. As the president sat down at the table and he saw all these women standing on the risers behind him, and, well, watch what happens.
Down, thank you. Thank you so much. Everybody, thank you. If you'd like to gather around me, I think I'm going to be okay. Come on. Come on. Secret Service is worried about them. If we have to worry about them, we have big problems. Okay, do you want to do this? Watch what I do, and then I'm going to give you some pens, okay? You ready? What a nice picture this is, huh, Governor? You ready? We'll do a good job. Wait, let me press that. I want to make this a really good signature, because this is a big one, right? Oh, I think we have a 10. We have a 10.
God bless you, Mr. President.
Pretty good, huh? Okay? Good. Now you're going to go out and win those events, right? Nice to see you all. Nice to see you. Great going, everybody. Nice to see you. Thank you, kids. Here. Take a pen.
I got to tell you, I'm a softie for things like this. I've got 2 daughters, and also, I mean, I see faces that I recognize in the crowd there. I see Jennifer Say and Paula Scanlon and Riley Gaines. I was part of the Title IX bus tour that started a Save Title IX bus tour that was sponsored by Independent Women's Forum. It kicked off in Scranton, Pennsylvania last May, and you might remember I did this show from there because I was in town doing the very first event. I was the MC of the event, and I know these women. I've got to meet these women, and I really am getting emotional when you think about the journey they've been on, because I know what kind of abuse they endured. I know what they were called. I know how they were attacked by fellow women and by the trans community. I remember when Riley Gaines spoke at San Francisco State University, and she had to run for her life because they chased her into a closet because they wanted to kick the shit out of her. And they had to go through it, and they had to stand up, and they had to fight for what they believed in. And it led to that moment yesterday, and it's a pretty cool thing to see. And it has an impact, a huge one, not just on all of the little girls and young women and mature women who are competing internationally in the Olympics as well as at the collegiate level, who want an opportunity to get an athletic scholarship. And in some cases, the only way they could get and afford a college education is through their ability on the softball field or basketball field, volleyball court, or in a track meet. And they had to take a back seat to a man for those scholarships that were set aside for women. Not only does it have an impact there, but it has a larger, far-reaching impact on our popular culture and in the consciousness of the American voter. Many people observed that, not least of which J.K. Rowling, who knows a little bit about drama, a little bit about pop culture, a little bit about the impact of imagery. J.K. Rowling, of course, also a courageous defender of women and what it means to be a woman from this onslaught, this maniacal agenda on behalf of transgenderism or on behalf of something even darker. She tweeted out that photo, that moment, surrounded by all of those beautiful young women. And she said, "Congratulations to every single person on the left who's been campaigning to destroy women's and girls' rights. Without you, there'd be no images like this." A similar sentiment was expressed by tennis legend Martina Navratilova, a woman of the left and an activist for gay rights, who drew the line on ruining women's sports. She took a look at the video of all those young women entering the East Room, and she said, "I hate that the Democrats totally failed women and girls on this very clear issue of women's sports being for females only." It's the one issue Martina Navratilova seems to be right about. And sadly, she couldn't take this moment to actually congratulate and thank Republicans for being on the right side of the issue. Instead, she's more concerned that her party is on the wrong side of the issue. That's fine. Meanwhile, some things will never change at Disney-owned ESPN. They announced this news to their viewers this way. President Donald Trump will sign an executive order Wednesday designed to prevent people who are biologically assigned male at birth from participating in women's or girls' sporting events. It's amazing how they can use the word women's or girls, but they can't use the word men. Why does this tweet not say from participating in sports designed for people who are biologically assigned female at birth? Huh, ESPN? And by the way, while you're at it, can you explain what the hell you mean by people who are biologically assigned male at birth? I understand what it means to be a biological male. And I also, strangely, understand what it means to say that you were assigned male at birth. That means that a doctor who was performing the birth or overseeing the birth that the woman, the mother, was actually performing, who identifies the genitalia and saying, yes, that's a male. That's not biologically assigned. That's, you know what I mean? I don't understand what these words mean. I doubt ESPN understands what the words mean, but they knew they couldn't say the truth because over at ESPN, owned by Disney, the truth gets canceled. So over on CNN, Harry Enton broke down the politics behind this, and surprise, surprise, everybody's on the side of those women in the White House and President Trump.
I think these numbers are really illuminating on this topic because I just think there's such a clear trend among the American public. So transgender female athletes in women's sports, only 18% of the country says that they should be, in fact, allowed to participate in women's sports. Compare this to the opposition. I mean, my goodness gracious, 79%. You rarely get 79% of the country to agree on anything, but they do, in fact, agree on the idea of opposing transgender female athletes in women's sports. But it's not just the here and now, Laura. It's not just the here and now. What we're actually seeing is a trend on this particular issue, and it's going in the direction of opposition. So take a look here. Okay, transgendered female athletes, and amongst those Americans who oppose them in women's sports, back in 2021, it was 62%. A majority, but, you know, not anywhere close to a ginormous majority, right? A clear majority, but not a ginormous majority. But then again, you look here in 2025, you see it at 79%. So it's not just that the majority of Americans are opposed to transgender female athletes in women's sports. It's that the opposition has become considerably larger in just the last 4 years.
That's correct. And the opposition recognizes this issue as, well, sort of a bellwether. You know, where you stand on this issue tells me a lot about where you're going to stand on a whole lot of other issues that matter. And it's very rare that conservatives are on the side of a cultural issue where our side grows in strength and political power. Very rare. Usually we are swimming against the tide of a cultural issue. And as my old friend and late mentor, Andrew Breitbart, of course, coined and made famous the phrase, politics is downstream of culture. You get on the right side and you start changing the hearts and minds of people through your pop cultural issues like sports, and you end up winning political elections. That's exactly what we're seeing right now. And I think Scott Jennings later that evening on CNN said it best with regard to Trump's ability, especially as we've seen over the first 2 weeks of this new presidency, to be able to find the sweet spot on these issues in particular.
He's describing what is currently the dumbest strategy in politics, which is Democrats taking the 20% side of every 80-20 issue in America. USAID, people want this pared down. They want it streamlined. They want to know where the money is going. Democrats have a meltdown. Today, Donald Trump signs executive order on keeping boys out of girls' sports. Democrats take the 20 side of that issue as well. All these issues, this is like Trump's superpower, finding a bunch of 80-20 issues, getting on the 80, and everybody who's sort of reflexively against him gets on the 20. And now the Democratic Party has like a 31% approval rating. This is why.
That is exactly why. And I'll just add this. As we said at the title of this program, something remarkable happened when Trump saved women's sports. And of course, the remarkable thing is that imagery you saw, that scene when all the young girls and women cried. You saw the picture of that little 6-year-old girl with a face like an angel watching the president of the United States sign that document. It was huge. It was great. And it's imagery that you can't manufacture when you're in politics. I don't know who was in charge of the stagecraft yesterday at the White House, but they deserve a raise and a promotion and an extended weekend off, although actually we need them every single day. So you're not getting your vacation, but take your raise. Take some of that USAID money while you're at it. That was huge. And that was the remarkable thing that happened yesterday when Trump saved women's sports. But there was also one other remarkable thing. It was really the remarkable thing that didn't happen. The video that I'm not going to show you right now. The video of the protest. Where were the Democrats yesterday? Where was the left? Where were LGBTQ activists taking to the streets and screaming outside the White House? Ringing their cowbells and beating their drums, screaming, hell no, we won't go. Where was Chuck Schumer leading those chants? Where was AOC leading the parade? Where were all the righteously indignant tweets calling us all bigots and sexists and homophobes and transphobes? Didn't happen. It was remarkable. But I think they're starting to get it. They've lost. They lost so bad on this issue. And they know that when they try to articulate their position and try to say, oh, no, here's why you're morally and ethically wrong about this. You people who are trying to protect little girls in a locker room from having, for the first time in their lives, to see a naked man without their consent. Oh, no, you're on the wrong side of this issue, and here's why. And then it doesn't matter what they say after that. Think about that for a minute. If you're a dad, think about it. Think about the idea of your daughter seeing a naked man for the first time in her life without her consent. And it's been forced upon her by public school educators, administrators, and politicians and transgender gay activists. And she has no say in the matter. In fact, if she tries to say something, she will be forced into psychological counseling because she's the problem. That's where we were just 3 years ago. And here's where we are now. Yes, something very remarkable happened yesterday, and it's amazing. Have you seen the news from economists? They're forecasting a depression, not a recession, a depression by the year 2030, well, unless something's done. See, we've got this perfect storm of Social Security and Medicare hitting a breaking point on the budget because the largest generation is hitting retirement. And then you've got a smaller workforce, meaning a smaller tax base to fund those programs. And then you got growing national debt, rising cost of living. It's a big problem. So I know you want the government to do something, but what are you doing personally to take control and protect your family for the future? Have you thought about gold? Well, gold can be a safe haven in hard economic times, and Birch Gold makes it easy to diversify a portion of your savings into physical gold. Birch Gold, they're the experts. They're going to help you transition an existing IRA or 401k into an IRA in physical gold. And it doesn't cost you a penny out of pocket. I want you to protect your future today. Text my name, Larry, Larry, to 989898. Get your free info kit on gold and get a copy of the Ultimate Guide for Gold in the Trump Era with a foreword by Donald Trump Jr. There's no obligation, only information. Text my name, Larry, to 989898. Do it today.